Hey guys, welcome into another episode of From the Wing. I am Christian Clark, the Pelicans beat writer for NOLA.com and the Times-Picayune. We are entering the dog days of the NBA calendar. This will probably be the last one we do for a couple of weeks here, but just wanted to get together to hit on a few things. We got an early over-under win total from DraftKings. I wrote a story about the luxury tax situation that we're going to discuss today. And then we're going to talk about the Suns local TV deal going through at the end of the show. Adam, thanks for hopping on with me today, man.
We're sick of you guys. We're just going to do this one. We're going to get away from you for a while and recuperate. It's been a long season and it's just been painful. And it's hot out there. We're just going to try and relax for a little bit and, get our shit together.
I'm kind of starting to flip the page towards the 2023-2024 season. And I'm putting last season sort of behind me now. I mean, I'm always going to draw on it, but that was a lot of ups and downs, twists and turns, and very, very frustrating at the end. I mean, I had somebody who worked for the team after exit interviews say, that was not very fun. Don't contact me for a couple of weeks because I just need to recharge.
It was a particularly, we are used to all the various machinations that you can come up with to make us miserable. This was a particularly hellacious year. It was just a while because you don't normally get tempted with the true heights of success first before you get crapped on. And so we got that instead. We didn't just get the meandering year where we had expectations and then, then they just flounder. It was, there's some expectations. Oh, wow, we're living up to them. Oh no, everything's falling apart again because don't forget you're the New Orleans Pelicans.
I wrote about the Scoot stuff. Pelicans decided not to do it. I'm looking forward now. It's only optimistic, Christian, from here on out, Adam. You don't look like you believe me.
I will believe that when I see it. I will believe that when I see it. Yeah, so look, it is that time. We're getting our futures odds for NBA teams, for records, for division wins. It's all here. Vegas is telling us to move on with our lives. So I'm here ready to be a sucker again. I'm here ready to lose hundreds of dollars again, just like I did last year, because I was hyped last year. I did a lot of things, bought a lot of futures bets. We had our friend Matt Moore on the show, and he was like, "Hey, the Pelicans are one of my teams where all my value bets are. I like a lot of their stuff. I think they're really undervalued." I wish I could say that I didn't take all of those, but I did. And
hey, look, I was drinking the Kool-Aid too. I was 100% drinking the Kool-Aid. I mean, I think if you asked me today, I would still predict the over on this very early over-under total from DraftKings. Let me just read them real quick. So yeah, we got some Western Conference win totals from DraftKings. Denver was first, 54.5. Phoenix second, 51.5. Golden State third, 49.5. Lakers fourth, 48.5. Memphis fifth, 45.5. Dallas sixth, 45.5. And New Orleans and Sacramento were tied for seventh, 43.5 each, followed by Minnesota's in there too, 43.5, followed by Oklahoma City, 42.5. The Clippers were not on the board because they maybe are still going to swing a trade for James Harden. We'll have to see. But right now, that has the Pelicans in play-in tournament territory and maybe just behind those top six teams. Does that feel right to you?
I am ready to be hurt again. Yeah, it's right. In terms of you can't rank us any higher than that. You might have Vegas is weighing everything, right? They're trying to generate action. They can't look at the team and say oh yeah, Brandon Ingram and Zion are on it. And so this is going to be a 50-win team. They've been bullish on the past. It will not shock me at all if we get through the summer and, guys are fairly injuryless and Zion is looking good and they report to camp, that number will climb. It will go up from 43.5. It will probably creep up to 45. Would not shock me if we start the year 45.5 or 46.5, which I believe last year was 46.5. And I took that. So I'm definitely taking 43.5 because like, what are we if not optimistic? And what choice do we have given what's on the roster? If it's healthy, they managed to win over 40 games with all of the injury bad luck you could possibly have. Why can't they win 44 if everybody stays healthier than last year? Even if they have one of the guys longer than they had last year, it's very easy for them to potentially eclipse this number. So yeah, I'm going to do it to myself again. I'm going to torture myself again, and I'm going to throw some cash all out there, and we're going to get 44 plus. In fact, I still want 50. I want 50. I want to get out of the play-in. I still want that. I think that should still be the challenge. I think last year, really the only bright spot is that Trey got a lot of run and got to experiment a lot and got to really like find himself on the floor. That's like kind of the only like large plus that I have from how things went last year. The rest of it, let's scrap it. We're doing it over. We're doing it over this season. We're going to make it work. It's going to happen.
What the 43.5 over under win total said to me was, hey, look, we'll believe you guys will stay healthy when you actually do. Like, it is Vegas in we'll believe it when we see it territory. That is what that number said to me, because I think there is a lot of talent on this roster, even though it's pretty much the exact same roster as last year, minus a couple reserve centers going out and Cody Zeller and EJ Liddell in, and you got Hawkins in here too. But near identical roster. I like this roster. I think it's good. The pieces just have to come together. That's kind of what this season is about. Like, there are a lot of nice pieces, but it just has to come together. And this is it. Like, one of the questions I want to ask at media day to like Griff or Trajan, hey, look, we're running it back for the third straight year. Like, if it doesn't work this year, what do you do? I mean, this has to be like the year where it works, or you have to change a lot of things, I would imagine.
You can't just anybody's like logical adult mind says you don't get another year to just do the same thing again. This is already pushing it. The fact that you haven't had results and you have the contracts that you have, you're at the brim of your cap, you're over the brim currently. And you're sitting here saying like, we're going to run it back. You had no choice really. Like, this year you have to. Next year, if you still haven't put results down, and it's even if it's because of health again, then like it's still fundamentally indicts your judgment because you put an unhealthy roster together, and you don't get to do that again. So yeah, I think it's do or die time. I think you are getting this roster. This roster gets re-envisioned if this doesn't work. Like, we were already knocking on the door of this. Like, we talked about Scoot. We won't talk about him too much more, but like, this thought has been had. And it has been had and pursued. I can't imagine if they don't put it together this year, if there's not wholesale changes to some of the higher level pieces on the roster.
I asked this question because their fates are directly intertwined. The Pelicans could have their unprotected first round pick in next summer's draft, although they have the option of deferring it to 2025. Are the Lakers going to be good this year? And I mean good in the regular season, because they were good in the playoffs. They were not good for most of last year in the regular season, then kind of turned it on after the trade deadline. But are they just going to be a good regular season team this year?
I think they're going to be the same kind of as last year. I think they may be a little bit better. AD is going to miss time at some point. There's a lot of chatter about still at this point where like Anthony Davis has been in the league for a long time. We're still having this conversation about what version of him is the best. I've listened to some interviews talking about the Lakers in the offseason and like what they want to see from Anthony Davis. And we're still having the same conversations about putting a center in there to play next to him and having centers on the roster so that he doesn't feel like he has to play center, but he needs to play center. But when they were their most successful, and this is on a few teams that were successful in the playoffs, when they were really successful, it was when somebody held down the true five, like gave them rim defense and allowed him to roam and be the wild, athletic, shot blocking, recovery defender that he is. That is him at his best. the thing that unlocked that in the playoffs for them last year was actually Rui Hachimura and being able to do some unique things with him guarding the baseline and things that allowed Anthony Davis to be a little freer. I think he's going to get hurt like he always does. I think he's going to miss some time for something because he just always does. And at the end of the day, his shot doesn't exist anymore. And like I think it's like a double-edged sword, because when he's making outside shots, he settles for them too much. And when he's not making them, he still takes them. But like, he's in the 20s in terms of his 3-point percentage now. The bubble be damned. I think I would like to see the paper. I want to see the chart of like the guys who were fake shooters in the bubble and what's happened to them since.
Yeah, I think Mason Ginsburg was really on that. Bomani Jones, I saw others, and I like talked to people in the NBA too who really know AD's game well, and they're like, "Look, this is going down because there are not fans in the crowd, and when you just introduce that added pressure, the jumper is just not going to go down at the same rate." I think that's a real thing. He was one of those bubble bump guys in terms of the field goal percentage on the jumper.
We never got to find out about TJ Warren because he never came back in a substantive way fast enough. But TJ Warren, bubble superstar. What was it? What's old guy that's still for some reason like always been a scorer, still on Orlando? Wing scorer. He's on their bench. Been in the league like 10 years. I can't remember.
I'm gonna like say the wrong name and look stupid, but I'm like, guy who's been in the.
I can't pull it. All right. Anyway, moving on. He was another one. I'm reaching for that name and I can't get it. It's like in there. It's like
Terrence Jones. Is that who you're talking about?
Terrence Jones.
I don't know. Who are you talking about?
I would need to look it up. I'll come back to that.
Okay.
I was pulling another name of another guy that performed in a big way, and AD we know him. I think what the Lakers are going to do, I think they're going to make trades to make their team better. I don't think they have improved their future in some wildly substantive way. I am shocked that and I credit to LeBron for whatever he did to scare the Spurs off or the Rockets off from throwing a sheet at Austin Reeves. But Austin Reeves signing for that money seems kind of insane to me. That was a big get for them, but like believing that Rui Hachimura is now like really found himself and is like a go-to rotation guy that you're going to lean on. Still nervous about that. Still don't know that that's the thing, but they're essentially going to take back what worked in the playoffs, but everybody's seen it now. You're still in a position where you want to get AD free. The jumper's still not there. I think they're kind of the same team. They probably make a move at the deadline to better themselves again, but also short their future. And, it is what it is. I think 48 is probably about right. They might get to 50. They might be in that 5th, 6th. They got, two of the best players in the NBA still. So
the team that I feel like people are in the media are going to be smashing the over on is the Oklahoma City Thunder, who won 40 games last year. What were they at in this DraftKings over under 42.5? So they would have to improve by 3 wins. That seems really doable. Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, one of the 5-10 best players in the entire NBA last year. Stud. Josh Giddey, really nice player. Dort, really nice role player. They're introducing Chet Holmgren into the mix, who I think is going to be an excellent player. Like I have a lot of Chet stock. I'm a big believer. I think he's going to be a monster on defense. I think he's going to have a lot of like grab and go potential where he gets a block, just takes it up and they get an easy one off that, just the rebound. Like I love him as a grab and go guy. I'm a big Chet guy. I think he's going to be really good.
The first half of his first summer league game, Twitter shithousery about Chet, he survived those allegations pretty quickly. He got some nastiness thrown at him in the first half of his first game in summer league because he was struggling to be effective, wasn't making shots. Then all of a sudden he looked like Chet, and the defense, like he can
dunk without jumping. He's very competitive. He's going to try to block a bunch of shots.
Footwork's insane, and he's way more athletic than you think. He covers a lot of ground very quickly, even though he does so looking like Lurch, and it just is what it is. Also, the name that you were reaching for me, you said Terrence Jones. We were looking for Terrence Ross.
Oh, that's what I meant.
that is the guy I was reaching for as being a bubble hero as a scorer. But yeah, I think Chet's going to add a lot. It's interesting to see what they do. They still have a lot of cut downs to do on that team. They still got like 5 guys on the active roster they got to get rid of. They just waived Rudy Gay. They're gonna have to, like, we're at the point where OKC didn't deal enough of those picks, the treasure trove that they've had, and they're just like loaded with dudes that they were speculating on that are going to have to go. 1 or 2 of these guys are going to go to another team and be good.
Yeah, I mean, I didn't even mention either of the Jalen Williamses, in my previous little thing there. I mean, the one from Santa Clara, like stud, like star potential, legitimately good as a rookie on both ends, which that does not happen very often, where you are so good you're contributing to winning as a rookie. And then the kid who went to Arkansas, the center, loves to take charges.
I was about to say,
take a 3 every now and then. Yeah,
he's going to get teched all year.
Yeah, he looks like he's going to be a rotation player, and they can play him next to Chet. They can go with Chet at the 5 at some looks. So I like what they got going on. And then I'm going to be interested to see what happens in Minnesota. There was some talk of like they can trade Towns this summer. Doesn't seem like they're going to just yet. I think that's probably coming eventually if they can ever find any takers for that contract. But I'm really curious to see how that goes in year 2 of that weird experiment. I mean, that game that the New Orleans and Minnesota played toward the end of the year last year, was that game 82? Was that the final game of the regular season? I
feel like it was. I feel like it was because there was only because there was a segment where I said we were trying to figure out if we'd make the cut for the playoffs, and I said, wouldn't it be hilarious if us and Minnesota were playing the game that decided whether or not we got in, because that would be very apropos. So yes, I do believe they were last.
I mean, they were a poop show. Teammates punching teammates, or guys on their team punching the wall, breaking their hands. They're a poop show.
They got Jade McDaniels, baby.
Yeah.
Look, I'm just going to call it a bad experiment. You have Anthony Edwards and you have Jade McDaniels as 2 like very, very like exceeding the value that you might have hoped for them. Then you have Cat and Rudy. Rudy you can't get rid of, and Cat has had one of the weirdest careers, and also just like keep him away from a microphone. This summer tour of saying the most ridiculous things, like getting into the playoffs or winning a playoff play-in game is more important than Denver winning the finals. It's like all this crazy stuff. Like,
yeah, the 2 worst takes that I heard and I didn't listen to the full episodes. I just saw the snippets that got tweeted. It was between that one and I changed the game too. And it's like, actually, Dirk Nowitzki changed the game. He was the guy who made jumpers as a 7-footer and kind of revolutionized everything. You did not change the game. You're a very, very good offensive player. You did not change the game. Please stop.
He definitely changed how I view shooting 7-footers. If by becoming stationary because he made a handful of threes and has a big in the paint, that's maybe a little revolutionary. I don't know. He has the most irrational confidence. Like, I don't know. I've always heard he was a weird guy. Like, back to Kentucky, I have always heard that, like, doesn't have a lot of friends in the NBA. Like, the people he played with at Kentucky, he played with them not because like they were recruited. So like Devin Booker, Tyler Ulis, they weren't recruited because they were Kentucky targets. They were recruited because they got Carl and those 2 were willing to play with him. And a lot of guys didn't like him. And now we're in the NBA and it's like a lot of the same thing. Like, he's got like 2 guys on the team that are like openly his friends. And then there's everybody else. And the 1 year that he got it together, Patrick Beverley was literally in his face barking at him every minute of a game. Like, he has to have somebody like that because he's a strange guy. He is a strange guy, and clearly he sees the world differently than the rest of us.
Let's shift gears here. I wrote a story that ran today on NOLA.com about the Pelicans luxury tax situation after the signing of EJ Liddell, who was on a 2-way contract last year, to a 3-year, $6.1 million deal. The Pels are at $168.2 million in payroll. They are about $3 million above the NBA's luxury tax line. They have never paid the luxury tax in franchise history. So I think there's this question of will they or won't they this year? And, I guess a couple key points from the article. They have until the final day of the regular season to actually get under the luxury tax line. So it's not like they have to do something, before their first game in October or anything like that. Like they can take it into the season and do something at the deadline. And, not only would you, if they are indeed a luxury tax team, not only do you have to pay a penalty, it's pretty meager right now. Like they would have to make $4.4 million in luxury tax payments. But as we outlined in our last episode, they would not have access to the checks that each of the non-tax paying teams get in the NBA, which came out to $17.3 million last year. So, just like doing some math on the back of a napkin, that's something like $21 million if you are over the tax line versus under. But those were some of the basic points of the article.
Yeah, I think the interesting thing, like we've hit the tax thing before. We've had this conversation. We did a little like media panel thing recently. We talked about the tax there too. I think the thing that's interesting is the fact that like a lot of fans and some people that report on the team like view this as like a binary thing of like they will not pay the tax and bar none, end of story, don't talk about it. But this is like we're in a unique situation where, if they wanted to ditch it now, if they wanted to ditch the necessary salary now, they probably have to strap things to it to get it moved. And you don't really want to have to be in that position. And so it does open this door of like starting as a tax team and being a tax team to start the year. And I think that in and of itself, like should kind of quell this conversation a little bit. Like this idea that they're like so allergic that they like run away from the tax. And that I get that that's been their reputation and it's been earned. But now, like we're kind of in a different spot. We're having to make decisions based on like what is the best next choice for the operation here. Is it for Kyra Lewis to walk out the door and to strap picks to him to get him to go somewhere now, or is it keep him on the roster and figure something out and potentially you find your center deal closer to the trade deadline and you also fix your salary? You get some sort of outgoing there that fixes your cap outlook for the rest of the season because you don't need to get that far under. I think that's a unique spot for us, and it's like a different change in that conversation than what we've previously talked about. Because like the season's coming, there's nothing out there right now that we know of, or rumblings about like the trade that's going to happen that's impending for the Pelicans. They might start the year with Kyra on the roster. Like it's a possibility. It's a real possibility.
It is. And my sense from talking to folks in and around the team, none of the people I talked to said, oh, Gail Benson will never pay the luxury tax. Like the sense I got from everybody was they'll pay it under the right circumstance. And the right circumstance, that is a subjective thing. And that's going to be interesting to argue when I think the team is a little more competitive. But I do think it is a pretty just tough sell for David Griffin to try to say right now, we're coming off a 9th place finish, and I think you guys should pay the tax next year. That's just a tough sell. I mean, it doesn't matter, like what NBA franchise you're a part of, unless you're working for Steve Ballmer, who's worth $100 billion. You're probably not getting that one green lit, So
Matt Ishbia will do just about anything right now. So he will put him in the Ballmer category. He'll do just about anything.
We're putting him in the Ballmer category. Not nearly as rich, but yeah, he's very rich, and he does seem willing to do anything. The other thing I'll say too is that most of the people I talked to felt like, okay, at least by the trade deadline in February, the Pelicans will be under the luxury tax line. But I did have a couple people say there is a scenario out there where the Pelicans enter the season over the tax like they are now, and they play really well. And let's say they're 3rd place in the Western Conference by the time the trade deadline rolls around. They still have these surplus of first-round picks. They haven't really made that super aggressive move. Maybe there is a world where they say, Kyra, JV, 3 first-round picks, and like we're getting a big fish and we are going for it. Like I don't think you can rule out that scenario and the Pelicans being a tax-paying team that way for the right move. So I think there are, a number of ways that this could go. I think a lot of it is dependent if they do enter the season over the tax, how those first couple of months of the regular season go until they get to the trade deadline. But my kind of feeling and takeaway after reporting out this piece was I did not come away from this being like they will never pay the tax under Gail Benson. Now, Gail Benson is not Steve Ballmer or Matt Ishbia, and the power structure there or anything like that. But it's not a situation where it's like this will never be a tax team.
Yeah, and that's unfortunately, like, that's how a lot of like the public conversation around it goes, because that sentence still exists. New Orleans and Charlotte have not paid the tax, and as long as that exists, that's going to be the tinge. That's going to be the way that conversation goes. That's going to be the kind of the elephant in the room. But it is interesting, like the last handful of years, we've had a lot of conversations like nationally about championship windows and windows opening and windows closing. And we used to have this view where like you open a championship window for 3 to 5 years, blah, 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 blah. Recently, it appears your NBA championship window is a year or two. Like if you see a crack in the window, you kick it down and you hope for the best because you may never get another glimpse. The best players in the NBA have gotten themselves onto teams that were designed for them to go win titles and did not get there and failed in glorious fashion. If there's an opportunity, we've talked about this, like if they've got 36 wins stacked up already when we're getting closer to the deadline and they're staring down like an upper 50 win season and they're staring down top 4 and something is out there that looks like it significantly slides things in their favor, like a verified superstar player or star player addition, or even like a wild veteran, like a 8 to 10 year veteran that like has a true role in this league where you could upgrade one of those positions. You got to go for it. If it's there, if that's what the team's done for you up to that point, like we can't really do the sit around and wait year and then do this next year because there's no guarantee that the opportunity is going to come. If it's there, they got to be willing to strike.
Yeah, totally. And I think this kind of leads us into the last thing we wanted to talk about, the Suns and the Phoenix Mercury's local TV deal. To me, the single biggest knock on Pelicans ownership, Gail Benson and Dennis Lauscha, who kind of runs the day-to-day operations, and some other people in that power structure, is not, in the last 4 years, is not spending on payroll. It is not spending on basketball ops, because they have spent on basketball ops, and basketball ops has gotten some incredible resources and the ability to bring in people who get paid very well. It is the TV deal to me. It is not doing what the Suns just did or finding a better solution than Bally Sports, because they knew this was a huge problem. They knew it for a while, the accessibility. They did have conversations with Gray. The Suns are going to partner with Gray. But at the end of the day, they opted to just go back to Bally. I think they would say, well, we didn't have any other options. Oh, this is pre-bankruptcy. All of that is true. But you just can't go back to Bally.
You also can't pretend like you didn't know for over a year that they were going to go bankrupt. Like we talked about it 8 months before it happened on here. So like you knew they were going that way. You knew they weren't solvent. You knew that they were potentially going to miss. They weren't even, this isn't even about like just like having operational cash. They couldn't pay the interest on the loans that they used to buy the rights. Like they're poor. The roof is falling apart. The windows are cracked. There's no insulation in the walls. Like the house is a shell.
The Bally broke boys, some are calling them.
Yeah, the Bally broke boys. I think that's the point, right? Is like it's not necessarily, we've talked about like a little bit of nuance. This is a hard thing to do. It's probably easier for Ishbia to come in, not having this tenure with the rest of the NBA and rubbing elbows with the other owners. And he gets to be a rebel because he's the new guy. He gets to come in and make the splash, and he makes the big rebellious move. I don't think, in a lot of scenarios, I don't believe that our like ownership group and like managing leadership would have made the choice, because this is a scary thing that he just did. Like he's making a bet on future money based on exposure of his team. And based on like, he's essentially like giving his team to the people temporarily with a plan to make some of his own buck back by streaming it out himself and like figuring out how to distribute it himself. That's a lot.
And hoping that by, tripling the number of households Suns games are going to be in, that brings more people into the arena to watch games,
Right.
buying merchandise. The hope is that is juicing other revenue streams, and they're not going to get this $30 to $35 million, payment from Bally every year for those local rights, which it is significant. It is a significant piece of the pie. But yeah, the deal went through. I think we thought, oh, this might get tied up in litigation. I don't know exactly what happened, but the deal went through. It got announced. Bally's not going to match. Ishbia is doing interviews now. Here's a quote from one he did with a radio station in Arizona, 98.7. I know fans are appreciative and happy. I'm excited about it. It was a big, big deal, and hopefully it changes the sports landscape where owners follow because it's the right thing to do for the fan. It might not be the right financial thing to do in some situations, but it's the right thing to do, and that's our job as stewards of the organization. Oh my God. I love reading that.
The only thing, like the thing that I'm dying for most, and we've talked about this a ton of time because of the time you spent in Denver, I just really want to know what like the Walton and Kroenke family is saying around the dinner table about this guy, because like they have like cordoned off the ability to watch a championship team and an all-time player, and they are not allowing fans to watch it. They are like purposefully lording over the rights to view their team in their own little cable broadcast structure. And this guy says, like, comes in like Robin Hood and, points a little pistol at the rest of the owners and says, I'm going to give my team to the people. And they're, threats, I'm sure threats came. I'm sure they were like, we're going to fire all the ownership nukes at you. And here we are. Where's the big litigation court case? Where's all the fire and brimstone that should have come for Ishbia? It didn't. And they're going to get their team out there. They're never going to have to hear complaints about being like outside of a 60-mile radius of New Orleans. And thus you cannot watch Bally sports. Thank you. The last decade, this is a wild development. I can't understand why it's not talked about more. This is probably like the erosion of sports journalism.
If you don't know, this is the first domino in the RSN model just crumble.
Dying.
Yeah, this is a huge deal. This is a huge story. That's why we keep talking about it. This is a massive deal.
And it doesn't lead ESPN or anything like that because all they care about is pissing you off. And they don't want to get into nuanced conversations anymore. They're killing off every show that had any substance to it. So we're going to talk about it, and like nerds are going to talk about it. This is the beginning of like fans getting what they want in the long run. Like there is not Bally's is already dying off. We were already excited. Like you and I both like got a little twinge when we heard the possibility that Bally's was going to go bankrupt because there is no shelter really to run to. Like NBC Sports isn't just going to come and pick up everybody's broadcast rights. Like it is not that great. The RSN model is a different thing in different markets. It's not just a winner where like you sweep it all up and you make profit. And now it's going to die. Like this is the beginning of this. He's the first one through the door. Now other teams are going to want to do this. And it opens the door. Like look at Jim Dolan. As much as we hate Dolan, one of the biggest reasons that the Knicks are so valuable is because he's broadcasting them in New York on his own network. Like he has his broadcast rights to his team, even though they suck and have sucked perpetually for decades. He has this commodity that nobody else in the NBA has. Ishbia found another path to commoditizing the broadcast of his team. And if he does it successfully, every single ownership group is going to want to do it. Like it's really, really interesting where this is going to go. It could mean a lot of things. And it definitely means that the old school RSN agreements that we've done where they crazy overpay for rights and everything, and we just take that because it's a fat check, like that ecosystem is dead.
Yeah, look, I mean, the Pelicans when they re-upped with Bally, it was a 5-year deal. I was told they could opt out of the deal after 3 years. The deal is complicated now because, Bally is filed for bankruptcy. I just think it's going to be whatever happens next. I think is going to be very interesting, and hopefully it is an outcome where Pelicans games are just more accessible, because it is a huge problem. And I just think it's a huge problem, especially in this market too. Like, just because, it's just not the richest market. And it's like, it's a big cost for people to pay, 90, $100 in cable every month. They don't want to do it. So
I don't do it anymore. So I watch
don't pay
all
for
the
cable.
I watch all the TV in the world, and I watch every sporting event under the sun. I can speak intelligently about like every sport out there. I don't got it anymore. There's just nothing out there. There's nothing there that, streamers don't have for me. I think my next big development that I'm on the lookout for is like, who is the first team? So the Pelicans can exit the agreement in 3 years. Who's the first team that gets a proposal or has a conversation and decides to bail on that contract early? Because I don't think Bally's has the ability to fight that. I don't think if somebody really put that contract under a magnifying glass and threatened to fight it, I don't see Bally like mounting this giant legal defense to keep them in the contract for another couple of years. I think the door's open for somebody to bite that bullet and, follow the Ishbia path soon. I'm interested to see if someone does and who it might be. I don't believe it would be us, but it's interesting. I don't think the Pelicans would have to wait 3 years. I really don't. I don't think Bally's and Diamond Sports is in any position to keep these things running when the faucets are already turned off. Like, some of the water in the house isn't running, and some is. The lights are still on. It's still, operational cash is still flowing to a degree, but like they're at a dead end. This thing has an end. It has a shelf life, and it's coming to a close.
When I look at like big picture reasons why the NFL is just such a juggernaut, a couple of things. It's very accessible. Like, anyone can watch an NFL game. It's the same day of the week for the most part, so it becomes a ritual for people. And there are not so many games where they start to feel, well, this one doesn't matter that much. All 17 of them really matter. And
we're playing the
just
Wizards
think,
tonight.
yeah, I just think the NBA, like, and they're not doing that in large part, but like, they should look at those big reasons of, oh my God, the NFL is just, like the most successful professional sports leagues of all time. What lessons can we learn from that? And the NBA is not doing bad either. Like, as we've talked about many times, the national TV deal is going to double, maybe even triple. So they're doing well financially. They're in a good place. I just wish they would look at some of these lessons and try to apply it to what they do. And this seems like it's going to be a change for the better. Hopefully in 10 years, all these games are very accessible locally.
For everything that we're saying and all the criticisms and all the conversation about how they can do it differently, how they can be better, realistically, the NBA is not passing the NFL anytime soon in popularity. They are firmly number 2. And I don't think, baseball is not in a position to recover. Like, baseball's dealing with a lot of problems when it comes to like viewership and ratings, like so much so that they finally started changing the game, and the game is now like a little less than 3 hours and whatnot. But like, popularity is not on the rise for baseball in a way that threatens the NBA. The NBA is firmly number 2, but the NBA could be a lot closer to football in terms of value and continue to grow like it has in a more sustainable way than just like boosting the value of the next team sold. Like, right now, we're still kind of living like a little bit snake oil in the NBA, where a lot of the value of the NBA is propped up by paying your way into the club with these valuations on teams. That's what's kind of propelling things. We are starting to get like ratings and viewership is going back, but now like the ratings conversation is kind of in the tubes because of reasons we just talked about. You now need more exposure just because people aren't watching cable anymore. You're going to have to find ways onto streamers and have your own, because that's just the way that we consume things now. It's going to be an interesting future, but at the same time, like, the NBA is not in like some sort of dire territory, but these giant, Globo Corp sports that we watch, they don't continue forward in ways that aren't pursuing like multitudes of growth. They're looking to turn over and multiply their profits every year. And in pursuit of that, like these are the things they have to talk about. Like they've got it. They're going to get 2 expansion teams. That's coming. More product is coming. The tournament is probably the in-season tournament is here. It's probably going to get expanded in the future to add more games. They're going to keep like tossing it in there because more product right now in the NBA is what yields more money.
Yeah, the previous episode we did, by the way, I was mistakenly calling the in-season tournament the play-in tournament. When I listened back, I was like, oh yeah, we live in a 2-tournament universe now in the NBA. Multi-tournaments.
Yeah. Hey, they're doing something. So sure. But either way, like it'll be interesting to see the choices that get made. Like Ishbia might have done everybody a favor. A lot of people have complained about like laws that have been passed over the years. And then some of the recourse of those things that happened led to like a greater future for the markets that laws were applied to. Ishbia breaking through and doing a different kind of deal and a different kind of broadcast setup and getting the game out to more people and caring from that level and trying to, and like, he's not just going to lose hundreds of millions of dollars. Like he is going to potentially lose money in that first year, but this is all done with a plan to make it up. Like he ran numbers on this. He's not rich for no reason. There is a plan to recover all of this. He will have money in his own streamer that he will start making revenue from. Merch sales will go up, ticket sales will go up. Like that is all forecasted as acutely as they can. But if he does this and influences other teams, other owners to do this, they're all staring down the ends of these bad Bally's contracts. Like there's tons of teams that are going to be in this predicament, if not now, in 2 years. They have to start planning. He gave them a blueprint. Fast forward, 5 to 8 years, maybe 20 teams are broadcasting their own games.
Ishbia clearly cares more about winning and fan experience than making money. And I guarantee you a lot of owners hate that because a lot of other owners care about those things equally, or maybe they care about making money 51% and then winning and fan experience 49%. Yeah. A lot of these guys, a lot of these people have to hate Ishbia.
We didn't get a second apron.
The folks in New Orleans, maybe including them.
Maybe, just maybe.
Yeah.
We didn't get a second apron because people love that Ballmer and Ishbia spend all this money. Like the second apron didn't get created because they were like, yeah, let's invite more people to spend hundreds of millions of dollars in taxes. They're making it worse. They're making it harder to do so because the other owners don't want to do it. They don't want to pay all that extra money. They want to keep running in the black and raking in cash year after year. Oh man, never get tired of sticking it to the man in these basketball business conversations.
All right, Adam. Well, me and my wife are going out of town for about a week here. I'm going to be deleting Twitter from my phone. I'm going to be trying to log off a little bit and trying to recharge the batteries a little bit. I appreciate you hopping on.
A little zero dark 30 for my guy on vacation.
Not full zero dark 30, but being much more offline. I'm gonna bring a couple novels. Can try to read a couple novels. Read the new Emma Klein. I'm a big Emma Klein guy.
All right,
so
I need to read more. I've watched a lot of TV, including like a lot of really terrible reality TV, because we can't really pay attention. So like you got to watch the kid too. So you kind of like you put stuff on that you don't have to pay like a ton of attention to. You just look up and it's on, and you kind of like pull something down. Crappy reality TV like really suits that because you don't really have to care that much. But then like when I do have downtime, I'm watching like all the HBO classics. I'm watching Band of Brothers, Deadwood. I got to finish Rome at some point. I never watched Rome. I got to finish watching Rome at some point. That's what I'm doing. You're over here enriching yourself with novels and words and some nice typeset, and I'm rotting my brain on the tube.
I'm also rewatching Parts Unknown for like the 7th time. So,
well, it's probably better than what I'm watching.
Yeah. All right, man. Well, thanks for doing this, and we will talk again soon.